So as we record this, we're in early August, heading into what we lovingly call the football season.
We're still in talking season right now.
It is. And we were just talking before. We're not in agreement on this issue. Tommy and I, from a team standpoint, are
Pause for a second. I will give complete homage to the last two defending national champions, who are represented by fans on the podcast today.
There we are.
So
U of M here for me, and Tommy unfortunately likes the Suckeyes.
But
wow.
I think the 15 before that came from below the Mason-Dixon line. So we'll just say it that.
Scoreboard, Dan. That's all we're saying.
You know, being a child of the Great Lakes, I have to be a Big Ten fan. But I have to tell you, now working with Tebow, you can't work with Tebow and not become a diehard SEC fan. So I now have this like divided loyalty between the Big Ten and the SEC.
How many therapy sessions did it take to work through that?
Well, quite a few. In fact, true story. The very last thing before I was like signing on to come work with Tebow at the Tebow Group, the very last thing I said was, I was like, hey, I feel like there's one last issue we should probably talk about before we make this official, because I don't want it to be a surprise later. And I was serious about this. And Tim's like, I think he got a little bit nervous, and he's like, oh, like, what is this? And I was like, well, in full disclosure, I need you to know I'm a huge Buckeye fan. And I loved his response, Dan and Todd. He immediately shot back. He's like, buddy, don't you remember who we beat in the national championship? And I was just like, okay, game on. This is going to be awesome.
He's a big Buckeye fan too.
Well, yeah. Absolutely.
Punching low, dude.
And little known fact, we have actually been on the business side of the house at the Tebow Group. We were actually a producer of a documentary about the Ohio State Buckeyes that's going to come out later this year.
Oh,
you
no
don't
kidding.
know about it yet. Your listeners won't know about it yet, but it's an incredible documentary. It's called Redemption, and it's about the Buckeyes. Both two things. One, the Buckeyes season, losing to their rival that stayed up north that Todd would lovingly tell you about, losing to their rival.
Great game.
And then redeeming themselves by winning the national championship, but also the revival that was happening on campus at the same time for people that didn't have a relationship with Jesus, actually coming to faith in Jesus because of the leadership of several members of that Ohio State Buckeyes football team.
Okay, I don't hate them as much as I used to.
It's an incredible story. It's like this dual story of redemption.
That
like
is cool.
Spiritual redemption on campus and redemption for the team winning the national title. We are so honored and grateful to be part of that storytelling effort, because we thought it was a great story. We wanted.
When is that coming out, Tommy?
The world. We don't have an official date yet. Yeah. But I've gotten to preview it, and it is really, really good.
So honestly, guys, don't get to repeat this part, but as a bleed maize and blue fan, because of the revival that happened on that campus this year, I would have been okay losing the game. Like the stuff they did and the baptisms, the story is legit.
That is amazing. That is really cool.
It's tough to say even the name in my household. I almost soaped my kids' mouths as kids saying what OSU stands for in my house, but I never actually did. But anyway, that aside, the thing that actually binds us together, let's get to that part, is God-honoring stuff in business. And Tommy has some of my favorite stories. Actually, let's jump there first. Tommy, you were telling a story about using AI to fight human trafficking. It's one of my favorite stories right now.
Well, Todd, I love it. Thank you for asking. You're like speaking my love language, by the way. So yeah, not only do we have a story, we have lots and lots and lots of stories now. So I'll tell you a few.
Well, there's a whole portfolio company that's doing AI to fight trafficking, right?
Oh, more than one. So at the time I probably last shared that story with Todd, we maybe only had one or two, but now we literally have a portfolio of over 20 companies that use their technology and use AI as a force for good to fight human trafficking. And it truly is one of my favorite things I get to work on day in and day out, is to use these, really for-profit businesses to ultimately fight human trafficking. And then our hope, as these businesses do well, we get to pour the proceeds and the profits that come our way back into this fight against human trafficking. It is like the coolest business story I could ever work on. So, yes, I'll give you a few stories that I think are super relevant. One of our companies is a leader in pattern recognition. So, using artificial intelligence, in the past, you needed at least a 20% overlap in two images to tell that one thing was the same as another thing. And so, imagine trying to match a magic marker. The marker had to be positioned generally the same way for that marker to show up and be the same thing from one image to the next. Well, with advancements in the way they do pattern recognition using artificial intelligence, our company that we're part of, and I'll leave them unnamed just for purposes of safety of our team and all those things, but they're able to match patterns with less than 0.5% overlap. So, in other words, 40x better than the prior gold standard because of using artificial intelligence as a force for good. That shows up. We were able to help a 3-letter agency friend of ours solve an actual case for 2 trafficking victims that were for sale on the internet.
Tommy, so you're using AI to fight human trafficking. You got this super cool image software that's scanning whatever and using that power, which is just awesome and crazy cool. What else is going on?
Yeah, so I mean, truly, with our partners at the Eagle Freedom Fund, literally the only thing this venture capital fund and audience, if you're not sure what a venture capital fund is, think of an investment where you're investing in brand new baby companies and you're trying to help them get their legs to get started. And then you're hoping they're going to grow into a bigger company that you might make your money back. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose your money. So it's a very high risk stakes game. Through our partnership with the Eagle Freedom Fund, we only invest in companies that are using their company to fight human trafficking. And so we actually have more than 20 companies in our portfolio that are using technologies to fight human trafficking. So imagine magnifying this story times 20 today, and we hope it'll be by much more in the future. But another example, one of the things we learned is the average human trafficking victim, as best we can tell, interfaces with a healthcare worker more than 18 times before they are recovered.
No kidding.
18 times. Well, why? Because without training, it turns out most of us aren't great at spotting when somebody's being trafficked. And I put myself in that camp. And so how do you solve that? Well, how do you figure out how to train healthcare workers in this fight at scale? One of our other technology partners, this one I'm happy to tell the world, Altus Solutions, through that company, they are training healthcare workers at scale. And we just had a report from one of the clinics that got trained. This is in the southeast of America. One of the healthcare clinics that got trained, a employee within a few weeks after that training spotted someone she thought looked like they were in trouble. It turned out that was a victim of human trafficking. And that one person led them back to the other victims of that same place. And it ended up being not only one person being recovered, but 12 people being recovered because one healthcare employee was trained on how to better spot when somebody's being trafficked.
And just for everybody's understanding, Tommy, these are not nonprofit entities you're talking about. These are for-profit businesses that are using their technology, their know-how, their resources in a redemptive way.
That's right, Dan. That's completely right. We believe we need all of it. We need incredible nonprofits.
Amen on that. Yeah,
out there doing the day-to-day work in so many areas. We need incredible government officials that say, we're going to care about these policy issues and we're going to make this, we're going to fight this fight alongside you on the policy side and the law side. And then we need for-profit companies to step up and solve problems at scale that other entities can't do it. So, and law enforcement is obviously the tip of the spear. And so it's all these partners working together for good, for what we call the real MVP, not the most valuable player, but the most vulnerable people. And I love that coming from Tim and Demi Tebow. Coming from Tim and Demi Tebow. Tim is the only 3-time Heisman finalist ever invited out to the Heisman finals. And Demi is a former Miss Universe. And so when they say we're not the MVP, the real MVP is the most vulnerable people, it just means so much.
Yeah.
But it takes everybody coming together. But I think what's been missing in the past, and this is why we're so excited to partner with the team at the Eagle Freedom Fund, what's been missing in the past is that for-profit side of the house to scale solutions that can help scale this fight faster, further. And they're
not having to spend their time with fundraising and that type of thing. That takes care of itself just by the very nature of the product.
Well, every startup probably is spending a lot of their time fundraising. So I don't want
to. If you spend time in venture capital,
I don't want to overstate it.
But which round of funding are we on, right?
That's right. They're definitely fundraising, but we're a part of that. And we want to be one of those early investors. Oftentimes we've been the first investor, and other times on multiple occasions now, leading law enforcement has come to our team and said, here's a problem I'm trying to solve. And we've actually launched, can't talk. And we've actually launched a technology.
Englishing is a problem for us in South Carolina sometimes too, Tommy. It's okay. I understand.
Well, we're cutting that sentence out. So
the bloopers would be great if we could show them today, but great.
Right. So we've actually launched some technologies from
we got to
scratch.
pause between a little bit. Come back. So
let me restate my sentence. So from leading law enforcement has actually come to us and said, here's a problem I'm trying to solve. I don't have a technology solution for it. And we've actually had the opportunity to help launch multiple technologies now in support of law enforcement to help meet whatever those needs were, that there wasn't a technology already out there to do it. So we've either been a first investor, we've helped start from scratch, or we've come alongside other investors to just help these companies go farther, faster.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
So, Tommy, your role is with the Tebow Group, correct? Help us understand a little bit of the relationship between, because most people are familiar with Tim Tebow Foundation. People in my part of the world, obviously, the Valentine event that Tim has been such a key part of really getting off the ground, making it really an international phenomenon now. What's the relationship between the group and the foundation?
Yeah, there's two sides of the house, Dan, but they both work together to serve the most vulnerable people around the globe. Mm-hmm. So there's the Tim Tebow Foundation, as you mentioned. This is the nonprofit charitable arm. Even though it says foundation, some people get confused and think, oh, that's Tim's private foundation. No, this is actually a public charity. You can go to timtebowfoundation.org and find out all about it. But ultimately, think of it as the boots on the ground between the Tim Tebow Foundation and our ministry partners around the globe, serving in over 100 countries and all 50 states. But think of that as the boots on the ground, actually loving and caring for some of the most vulnerable people around the globe. And in four main areas. So it's adoption care and prevention. It's children with profound medical needs. It's special needs ministry. And we'll talk about that. That's Night to Shine that you were talking about, our global prom for individuals with special needs that we're grateful to serve in 63 countries last year, serving almost 110,000 individuals. Like Dan's daughter and my daughter who have special needs.
Yeah.
And then last but certainly not least, we also spend a lot of time and energy in the fights against human trafficking and child exploitation, which is a different form of trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the Tim Tebow Foundation side. And then the Tebow Group side is the business side of the house. And this is where we build these incredible technology companies that are fighting human trafficking, or we invest in projects that are working to help spread the gospel around the globe. And we just have day-to-day responsibilities of overseeing Tim and Demi's speaking and the books that they have. Actually, Tim has a book coming out November 4th. It's called Look Again. We just announced it publicly on Monday. So that's coming out November 4th. It is an absolutely incredible book that helps us reframe the way we see ourselves. So it really seeks to answer the question, what does it mean to be made in the image of God? And what would change if for ourselves, if we understood how we were made in God's image? And then what would change as we see others if we understood that they were also made in God's image? Yeah. And it's so profound. I read it and it made me want to go through a wall. So
that's not surprising.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that's coming out. So anything like that, we oversee that on the business side of the house. So books, speaking engagements, investments in incredible companies. I'm sure we'll get to C12, but there's a great story there of us finding a company to invest in that's doing incredible work as a result of C12. So any of that business type of activity happens over on the Tebow Group side. But we work as closely as we can without crossing lines. Mm-hmm. We work together with the Tim Tebow Foundation for the good of the most vulnerable people around the globe.
The business case that I think is terribly interesting about everything you just said mm-hmm. is a ridiculously well-defined mission can allow your team to align of why they're doing their day job, allow you to recruit ridiculously talented people for this bigger mission and vision. I've met a lot of Tommy's staff, and there's some really quality people that you've got surrounding yourself with. Part of it's because you and Tim are pretty great leaders to follow, but this mission clarity piece is utterly essential to the whole piece of that thing.
Yeah, I would tell your listeners, the people on our team are definitely not there because of me. And I would say also not there because of Tim and Demi. Our team is there, whether it's at the Tim Tebow Foundation or at the Tebow Group. Our team is there to get up in the morning every day and serve some of the most vulnerable people around the globe. The mission of the foundation, it's just so powerful to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need. And so that is why our teams get up in the morning and go to work. It's to serve those people. And, our mission on the Tebow Group side is to fuel and amplify faith, hope, and love.
Right.
So how do we put financial gas in the tank? That's the fuel side. That's overseeing, leveraging and stewarding the investment platform that we have. And then the amplify side of our mission is how do we amplify the voice of the most vulnerable people around the globe? And that really speaks to the brand side that we also leverage and steward our brand platform in support of the most vulnerable people.
So Tommy, I feel like we jumped in midstream from a story standpoint. So we don't need to go all the way back to high school soccer, but you didn't obviously start working with Tim Tebow. You started off actually as a pastor. Do you want to go that route? We can go back to you working on staff at your father-in-law's church.
Well, I think we should go back to high school soccer because I know Todd just brought this up because audience, he wants you to hear this story that yes, my team played against his team in high My team played against his team in high school soccer. And yes, Todd's team smoked my team. So that is why he likes to start there. It's
We would
very
have
true.
mercied him, saved this ridiculously good stopper
You,
that was in there.
you realize our listeners,
Leading
our
up.
listeners saw that coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
That was not a surprise to them.
It is true. It is absolutely true.
So when we reconnected in college, you're on staff at a church and head into financial planning, right? Let's get in that part of the story. You head into helping finance.
I started out as a triple major in Bible, youth ministry, and music, and I found out I suck at all three of those.
Oh,
well, except for the
Good
fact
news.
that we could actually start a boy band. Like I think we could give a run for the money. The dance moves might be strong, like pretty weak on my side, but
that makes
that'd
two
be-
of us. No,
three.
I definitely didn't have the music chops.
Trifecta.
I do hope to be good at my Bible someday. So there's that. But yeah, I was started out as a youth pastor, and ultimately, when I was 17 years old, I took one look at a young lady and decided I was out of the game for the rest of my life. And so I needed a job so that I could marry this girl.
You met with her father-in-law.
Well, I needed a job so that I could marry this girl. And so I ended up interning with a financial firm. I didn't know anything about financial firms. I never set out growing up saying, oh my goodness, that's what I'm going to go do with my life. But fell in love with it because I found out you could be a pastor in financial advisors clothing. And what Todd and I learned, because ultimately I got to work with Todd in that side of the world. But what we learned pretty fast is if people would open up about their money, they would tell you about anything in their life. So how their marriage was doing, things they were scared about with the health of their children, or ultimately their faith. And so it truly was an incredible opportunity to just speak into people's lives and share the hope that we have in Jesus with people that may otherwise never hear it. And so I loved that role. Really set my sights on, Todd and I were working at a firm where we specialized in serving really high income doctors around the country. And I had set my sights on ultimately becoming the number one advisor for brain surgeons. That was my goal. Arguably, I may or may not have achieved that by the time I was 30, and then was really at a point in life saying, what's next? And ended up inadvertently in a leadership role in that firm, served for 3 years as the CEO, ultimately exited that firm in my mid 30s, ended up retiring, and that lasted for 2 days. By the end of the second day, my wife was pushing me out of the house saying, you need purpose. And so I went on to launch some more companies. But what happened at that point is my wife and I had decided we didn't need our own family foundation because we loved the work the Tebow Foundation was doing so much. And for us, it was a business decision. Why would we start over with something new and have new overhead and expenses and all those things when the Tebow Foundation was already doing such a powerful job in all of the areas where we were incredibly passionate as a couple? And so that was over a decade ago. Fast forward, I'd gotten to know their team, and their team called up about 3 years ago and just said, hey, we need somebody to help oversee the business side of the house so that Tim and Demi can spend more time on the nonprofit side of the house, actually serving and going after the most vulnerable people around the world, and just truly helping to rescue children out of what I would describe as the pit of hell. And when I found out the work they were doing for kids that we can't even talk about publicly, relationships with some of the most incredible law enforcement partners around the globe, when they read me in on what's really happening and what they're doing to fight it, I couldn't say no. And so joined the team to help lead the business side of the house about 2.5 years ago. And gosh, guys, I pinch myself almost every day. I've worked with incredible partners. I've had incredible businesses. We always really tried to have a really meaningful why we do what we do. But I can just tell you, and I tell all my former business partners this as well, I've never had this strong of a why for getting up in the morning. When you're there to serve children facing some of the most horrific evil in the world, it's just a different level. And I'll tell you what, it keeps me up at night and it gets me up in the morning.
Mm,
And in fact, we have one of our core values that I'm so proud we get to share inside of the C12 community. But one of our core values is we embrace the joy. Sorry, let me re-say it. One of our core values is we embrace the joy and the burden of the call. And
mm,
it's the burden that, man, I lose some sleep over. Like when we make mistakes, there's lives on the line.
Yeah.
But the joy is we now get these text alerts, and our partners that help contribute to the Tim Tebow Foundation get these text alerts as well. It's almost like a reverse Amber Alert. Instead of a child missing, we get to go shout out to the world when we actually have a recovery of a child or someone who is being trafficked, or just tell incredible stories across the globe of people receiving treatment for profound medical illnesses, all of these things. But it's almost a reverse Amber Alert. Like, hey, here's the good news we want you to know about, and that's the joy side of it. So you go through the sleepless night to have that incredible day when you get the good news of, hey, we got one.
yeah. What I'm loving about this, Tommy, is most people are familiar with Tim's philanthropic work. What they're not familiar with is the business side. And so I think it's really beautiful to kind of bring that to the forefront because, we say this in C12 often, if there's no margin, there's no ministry, So you're talking about the fuel that it's putting into the tank. When,
Yeah.
when you have the holy discontent of things, things cannot stay as they are. And so how does that change? And the beauty of that, doing it through not only the philanthropic arm, but doing it through the for-profit business side of it, that's equally, by the way, reflective of the gospel. And so I'm really excited to learn of that and lean into that with you, man. That's cool.
I appreciate you saying that. That's a tall order to say equally. The Tebow Foundation, man, they do such a great job for the gospel. I hope to do that good of a job at the Tebow Group someday.
Well, I think about these. I mean, we do this a lot, right, Todd? How many companies are you guys working with? I think I heard 20 just on the, on the human trafficking side and working with different technologies and whatnot. But how many total companies are you guys working with at the group? I mean, can you even give
you know the answer to that? Do you?
It's over 100.
So let's start doing the concentric circles on that, man. I mean, you do all of those employees and their families and the vendors, the opportunity there to leverage kingdom to work is pretty significant. Pretty significant. Certainly not taking away from what the foundation does. Not for a second, but don't sneeze at that. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It means a lot, and it's a lot of responsibility.
Sure.
And that's certainly as a business leader, I think a lot of leaders are more lonely than people realize, and that's why I'm so grateful for friends like C12 that help bring together those leaders so that you don't have that loneliness day to day. You actually have some camaraderie, some people you can share the actual highs and lows of what's happening inside the business. But it's definitely a whole different level of weight that I feel and responsibility that I feel when we're playing for such an important why.
Man, big time.
So walk us through that, Tommy. You've got not only the pressures of a for-profit, the pressures of a brand that we're going to know the name of. You've got however many 100+ companies at stake, and now we're doing all of that to help those four things you just mentioned through, particularly the anti-trafficking and child exploitation work. We say heavy is the head that wears the crown. Valid. There's a lot of stress and there's a lot of pressure, and it oftentimes will fall on your shoulders. How do you set up I think your phrase we used last at C12 was replenishment cycles. How do you deal with the stress when it comes in, and have it not break you?
Well, a couple things I'll unpack there, Todd. I think the most important thing is it doesn't all fall on me. So we have an incredible team across the Tebow Group and the Tim Tebow Foundation, the leadership teams on both sides of the house. Just people I'm so proud I get to do my business life with day in and day out, and a lot of my ministry life with as well. Just people that truly, even if I didn't work with them, I'd still be friends with them. It is a top-notch caliber of people, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. There's story after story of Tim during his football days that he would never tell you because he just won't talk about himself. But he was a legend on the field and in the locker room for being the hardest worker there and demanding more of himself than he demanded of everyone else, so that when he asked something of someone else, they wanted to step up and do it because they'd seen how much he had already given. And so I think a lot of it starts with, and then Tim married someone with just as much drive. And so I think a lot of it starts from Tim and Demi shoulder a lot of that. And then the whole leadership team shoulders a lot of that. So I don't have to do it alone is what I'm getting at. I get to do it with some of the most elite leaders that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. But to answer your question specifically, beyond sharing the burden, 7:30 on Sunday nights is my prescribed time to tune out the rest of the world and just recharge. And that looks a little bit different every week, but it's time that my wife and I worked on. We set it aside in the calendar, and it literally on my calendar, it says replenishment time. And it is, that window is meaningful because I have to go just get away from all of it, and get away from other people. Even though I love people, I have to have some time to just recharge and recover. I'm an introvert by nature.
That surprises me just in the conversation, but that's, yeah.
Dan, it surprises most people because I think, like so many times you see in the Bible, I think God has called me day in and day out to do what's perhaps the hardest thing for me to do, and that's to step in a big room of people. And I have to do that multiple times a week. It is really hard for me to do that. But I think that's part of how God makes sure that I'm relying on him. And I literally just say a prayer before I walk in that room, like, okay, God, I'm petrified. Help me out. And then, I get after it. So most people are shocked to find out I'm an introvert, but I'm a pretty heavy introvert. I really need that recharge time with myself or a small group of people, maybe my wife, maybe a couple friends. But 7:30 Sunday night, that is my replenishment, my recharge time. It looks different every week, but I'm so grateful I have it because that's my breather. And like knowing that's coming will often get me through a heavy Friday and Saturday and Sunday stretch, knowing I've got some recharge time coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, Todd and I really can relate to what you're talking about as far as introvert. We have no clue.
Not even a clue.
We have no clue. Not
chance,
even close.
Man.
We love the sound of our own voice, Tommy. But I so appreciate what you're. Regardless of introvert, extrovert, you better find a way to abide, right? If we're not finding a way to abide in the vine, we're kind of toast. We're kind of doing this on our own. And in the space where you are, and Todd, you're nailing it with all the stress and whatnot, but there's also this overlay of darkness that is permeated through the entire. My wife and I were foster parents for several years, and there's a lot of darkness in that space, man. And it came at a great high price for me because I did not take care of it the way I needed to take care of it. There were times of crashing and burning. Thankfully, it wasn't a moral crash and burn. It was literally a physical, emotional. I'm wiped, out because I didn't take care of myself. So I so appreciate you sharing that, because our CEOs, our business owners, our business leaders, they have to find a way to abide in Christ. Because if they're
John
not, they're flying
15 says,
solo.
apart from me, you can do nothing. And that's, I think we churchify a lot of the Bible sometimes because we hear about it from a pastor rather than a business leader. And you look at those things, it's like, no. That's not just for full-time ministry people, right? Apart from me, you can't do anything in regards to businessy, worky stuff. No, we need to abide with Jesus and spend time with him, not just check a box, right? I love checking boxes. I'm a TJ on the Myers-Briggs. Like, give me boxes. I like check. I'll write it down so I can cross it off. We need to abide with him in this spend time with him way, which is essential. So, Tommy, I want to go. We got the for-profit side kind of going. You're spinning hats, so I think a lot of people can relate to some of those aspects as well. Of you're pulled here, pulled here, pulled here, pulled here, pulled here. You mentioned your systems not doing it all alone, having the pieces, but how are you able to push out so much content as far as getting stuff done? I think is an interesting deal, and particularly how you have your structure with your team. Can we tease that out a little bit?
Absolutely. Once I understand your question better.
So you've got 100 businesses you're going, your leadership and all of these entities. How do you have the structure around you to be able to push crap out and get it done rather than have it all be the bottleneck around you?
So it all goes back to having a team of people that you can trust. And for us, that really revolves around two aspects. We have our core values, and these core values are a whole different level than what you see from most companies. And we can get into that in a moment. We also have our non-negotiables, and they're a little bit different than core values, but both of those help really guide and steer the types of people we need inside of the organization, because we need people that can ultimately make wise choices so that we can get stuff done. And so that's having a great team, but it's those core values coming together with our non-negotiables that brings everything together in a way that we can accomplish as much as we can.
I love that. So quality people, recruiting and onboarding is essential for those pieces. You guys do a really good job too in getting a pulse for your people. Walk us through how you keep a pulse on the organization. Can you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, there's two things that we do that I think are maybe a little bit outside of the norms for some businesses. Every 6 months, we do a cultural survey with our team. And the cultural survey is 100% anonymous. That's on purpose. I've debated that with various leadership teams over the last 2 decades. Ultimately, what we decided was we want an anonymous aspect of feedback from every team member on a 6-month basis. It gives us hopefully kind of the most unfiltered view of the business we can get. And we're really asking about culture as it relates to that particular check-in. Then on the off cycle, every 6 months, we do a check-in on communication. And the communication check-in is not anonymous. We actually know who's saying what. And between those two pieces of input, we get a lot of data about the organization from our internal team. And so, to re-summarize it, it's every 3 months you're doing one of these check-ins. It's an anonymous culture check-in. Then 3 months later, it's a non-anonymous communication check-in. Then it's an anonymous culture check-in. Then it's a non-anonymous communication check-in. And so,
how many team members are you guys working with, Tommy? That's a part of your team.
Yeah, we're in the 30s on the business side of the house, but that doesn't include the partnerships we have with over 100 companies, and more and more of them are relying on us to kind of help drive the same process and cadence under the hood for them. And so this touches far more than 30 people. This actually touches a lot of people. But we go out every 3 months and we're checking in with our people to try to get objective data. And then we also kind of pair that up with the report outs that we get on a monthly basis from our chaplain, from our corporate chaplain. And so between those three pieces of data, I get a pretty decent view of how are our people doing, how do they feel they're being treated at work, and how do they feel their talents are being utilized from a stewardship standpoint. And if
Oh,
we
I
under
love that piece. That's amazing right there.
yeah, it's really helpful so that I can keep my eyes on what's happening under the hood, because we really follow a framework that says our ultimate outcomes as a business really start with our people. How are our people doing? And let's not just love the most vulnerable people around the globe, but forget that we have people to love and care for right in our business.
Amen. Yeah.
So this is how we check in, and not only do we ask them to score certain things, but we ask them to give us real time feedback on what's working, what's not working, and through that, hopefully, we're able to care about the things that they care about, and address the issues that they're running into. And a lot of those I might never see if we didn't do this intentional check in with our people, because it allows us to uncover issues we would otherwise never know about.
How long have you been doing that rhythm?
So we started about 18 months ago.
Okay. Okay. So now you're really just starting to get the real, if you will, longitudinal data to be able to know where we are and where we're really going. So, good stuff, man. Did you guys just come up with that survey on your own, or did you get someone to help you with constructing that? How did you guys come about that?
Yeah, so there's a much larger survey that's done kind of nationally from a cultural standpoint, and we kind of riffed off of that larger national one on the culture survey. The communication survey we did just fully come up with it on our own. None of these things are rocket science questions. It's hey, do you feel valued when you come to work? Like, we want to know that. If they don't, why not? Help us understand why not. If they do, why? Help us understand what we need to keep doing more of. So that's kind of the ins and outs of it. But I would open this up to anybody inside of the C12 community. If they want access to these things, just reach out. We're very happy to share these. We treat these as non-proprietary pieces of our playbook that we are happy to share with any of your C12 members.
That is cool, man. Thank you.
As a side note, it's not explicitly a C12 podcast, but Dan and I are C12 chairs, and so obviously most of our folks are probably going to come from C12 up front.
I would also think then you pair that with things like other that's pretty qualitative in its data. Then you get the quantitative of things like retention rates and those kinds of things and turnover, and you get to start seeing and teasing out, are there correlations here that we may need to lean into? So what that's powerful stuff, man. It's not only doing good work, it's about doing it the right way. And I love what you said about how can we be serving the most vulnerable and then treating our people like crap? I mean, that doesn't work, man. It's not reflective of the gospel. So
that's right.
I love hearing that.
That's right. And we can always improve. We can always get better. So I never want our leadership team. I hope I never start to think, oh, we've arrived in this area. There's always something we can do to better love and care for our people. No different than there's always something we can do to better love and care for the most vulnerable people around the globe.
So, Tommy, related to that always get better mindset, that has to be somewhat near a core value for you, right? The idea of sharpening the saw or going to get some more designations back in the financial planning days or higher education stuff. Where does that come from? Like where you've got, you can list your stuff if you want to, but people can look at your LinkedIn if otherwise. But where does that passion for learning and desiring to get better come from?
Do you mean personally, or do you mean for our business?
For you personally.
For me personally, well, I got to give a lot of credit to just my upbringing, Todd. So kind of two pieces of it come together. First, I was a latchkey kid from the Great Lakes. And for those of you listeners that don't know what a latchkey kid was, it was the term for a kid back in the 80s where they would come home from school, but their parents were working. And so they would let themselves in the latch. They would put the key in the latch, let themselves in. And so my parents were divorced. My mom was a very hardworking teacher. And so I'd come home from school, let myself in, and had nothing to do. So I became an immensely curious kid. And I think it was just a natural curiosity that always caused me to have this like desire to learn. Like, why does this work? How does this work? Started reading my mother's chemistry college textbooks when I was in 4th grade. I just wanted to understand how
You are an introvert. Okay, I'm convinced now.
Yes, introvert all the way. And so I think it was just this innate curiosity. I've always just been a very, very curious individual. I want to understand, why does something work or why does something not work? Kind of brought that system level thinking. And how do you solve that? Well, you go learn. And whether that's real world education of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't mix those chemicals in the backyard because they just blew a pile of leaves apart, and thank goodness my face wasn't in it. Or true story, or that leads to like, hey, I never want to just assume I've arrived. I constantly want to be learning and growing. And that's certainly a value we want to permeate throughout our organization and our people, is that mentality of, continuous improvement. And fortunately, in the business side of it, that really originates with Tim and Demi. And, Tim was the type of guy, it didn't matter if he was winning his 2nd national championship. He might watch that film for 5 minutes and celebrate for 20 seconds. And then he's back to, how do I get better for tomorrow? And I think it's the same in this fight against human trafficking and child exploitation, especially. Yes, we have some winning days where we're so grateful we get to be the part of a recovery for lots of individuals, but there's still millions in harm's way. Millions. I'll give you, to the best of our knowledge, 25,000 people enter their journey of being trafficked, and less than 500 exit their journey of being trafficked every single day. Every single day, 25,000 enter and less than 500 exit. So no, even if somehow by the grace of God, we were part of all 500 of those exits one day, what do you go celebrate? Yes, you want to celebrate every single life because they all matter to God, but our job's not done. We got to get back to work the very next day, because there's so many more that entered than exited. And
how do we scale it? How do we scale it? Which is taking that business mindset and bringing it to the ministry side of the equation.
That's exactly.
Tommy, I'd be remiss if we didn't get to talk about your lessons from failure, right? Not everything has been roses and awesomeness. I want to hear about yellow snow.
Oh, thanks, Todd. Appreciate you bringing that one up. So, what Todd's asking about, the big picture point is really important. I tell everyone I became an overnight success after a decade of failure. I mean, literally, my first 3 companies went absolutely nowhere. That's one of them Todd's asking about. We'll come to that. And our 4th business, by the grace of God, ended up going nationwide like a rocket ship. And but through that, I still had a lot of really tough days. There's a 3-year period I didn't know how to buy groceries for my family for 3 years straight. And it was like there's these portions of the Bible where God's people don't have their food daily and God provides it. And I went through a 3-year period like that with my family. Wow. Literally did not know how to buy groceries. Business wasn't going well. On 3 different occasions, I almost gave it up and filed bankruptcy and stopped being a business owner because it was just that unsuccessful. But through that, I think God was preparing me for the future. And all of those difficult businesses, the first week I was working at the Tebow Group, all of those difficult businesses, I needed the lessons I learned from what I thought were failures 25 years earlier. I needed the lessons from those failures to help me with things we needed to handle that week. And it was just through the kindness of God, I actually got to see like what my failures had been leading to. Not everybody gets to see that this side of
Right.
heaven, but I actually got to see what those failures 25 years ago were meant to teach me, because I needed it 25 years later. But listeners, to answer Todd's question about yellow snow,
You can ignore that if you need to. I'm totally
no,
good.
It's so good.
yeah, I'm happy to answer it. One of my companies that just didn't go anywhere was an ice cream store, and we thought one of our novelty items should be what we called on the menu yellow snow. And those of you from the north, those of you up here in Big Ten country, you understand the significance of yellow snow means that an animal has relieved themselves in their
Excuse
white.
me. Even those of us in the South know to avoid yellow snow.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
But the Northerners really know it, Dan.
I'll give you extra credit for that, Dan.
Yeah.
But an animal has relieved themselves in the snow, and so you stay away from yellow snow. Well, we named a menu item yellow snow. It was a slushie with ice cream and Mountain Dew. And so it really was yellow snow. And I kid you not, it was a hit on the menu with middle school boys
Of course.
and no one else.
Todd and I would have loved it. We would have been all in on
We're
it.
still junior high
Those
boys.
weird middle school boys. So
The thing I love, Tommy, is everybody's got those mistakes in the background. If you're an entrepreneur, you're heading into business. For me, I tried to start an online marketing business in grad school. I have no technical experience. I love people, and I'm going to sit in front of a screen and try to help. What? Oh, my word. Yeah, I'm right there with you. My first 3 businesses were pretty massive failures. And then you finally get one that makes sense, that matches your gifting and skill set, and look out, we have some fun. But yeah, failure is a great teacher. Success, you don't know if you're winning. You don't know why you're winning, that you are winning. When you get to fail, man, baby, the learning lessons are so critical.
yeah.
So critical. I'm just cognizant of time. Tommy, we need to probably wrap this thing. We've been having our guests pray to kind of end us out. Love, you mentioned the Tebow Foundation to get a hold of us that way. If you want to help with the mission, what you guys are up to that way, follow Tim on the social media channels. How can we get a hold of you? Is there any ways we want to have you track in, follow you on LinkedIn? What's the connections for you?
Yeah, I think the best way for people to reach out, if they have some way we should be interacting on the business side of the house, is just to hit us up on our website on the business side. So tebowgroup.com. Come on over. There's a way to contact us. There's a way to contact us for lots of different things, whether it's an investment opportunity or to invest alongside of us, or to book us for a speaking engagement, or any of those things. And then certainly Tim and Demi both have their own channels as well. Mm-hmm. So if it's something specific to either of them, reach out to us there. Would love for your listeners to hit me up on LinkedIn. It's a great, I love that platform. I've made some of the just coolest connections of my entire business career on LinkedIn. So don't underutilize that tool. Hit me up there. I'd absolutely love it.
Yeah. I guarantee you there's some of our listeners, as you were sharing some of your stories from those 3 years of in the wilderness, if you will, that's where they find themselves today. So Tommy, I'd love it if you wouldn't mind pray over those people that are listening today that find themselves right there today.
Yeah, I will, Dan. Before I pray, let me just say a quick word to those of you that are in that kind of wilderness period. That's when we call it, when you're just going through a really, really tough time. During that 3-year period of my life, there were moments I was absolutely depressed, didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to get up and go to work. And some moments went beyond depression to true crisis. And so I just want to share with you, if that's where you are, I think the hardest thing for me was actually reaching out and telling anyone in my trusted circle that I need help. Because as a business leader, I had really put myself in this position where my identity was wrapped up in myself as a business leader. And so for me to reach out and say, I need help, is for me to admit that my identity is a failure. And so I just want to tell you, if you're in that position that I was in, your identity does not come from your success or lack of success as a business leader. Your identity comes from being someone who is created in God's image. period. And
Hard
so
stop.
I
Amen.
just want you to hear, don't wait. Don't wait. Go actually talk to someone. Go get that
100%.
help. And I'll give you two different pieces that I think matter for that, and then I'll pray us out of here. But
Yeah.
I think one piece is truly to have your support system in place before you need it.
Mm.
Todd likes to pick on me for going to a lot of different prestigious schools or whatever, and I kid you not,
It's just jealousy, but it's okay.
the best thing I learned at Harvard Business School was this. It was get your support system in place before you
Yeah,
need it,
100%.
because you're
100%.
going to need it. You're going to need that support system. So have it in place so it's already there when you need it, because when you're in the midst of it, it's really hard to go build it. And that's what I did the wrong way. I really just ignored my support system. I didn't build it up when I didn't need it. And then when I did need it, I didn't go to it. I didn't tell anybody I was in this moment of life where it was a crisis. It had gone probably beyond depression in some moments. And so I didn't reach out to my support system. So go do it. And then I think the second piece is to just have a trusted place to go. And what I'm so grateful for is there are counselors today. If you're like I was, if you are scared to go find somebody in your own community because you think somehow that's going to leak out and cause problems for you as a business leader or whatever it may be, there are places you can now go online and find a qualified counselor, someone that's in a different state. And I did that at one period. I went and found a counselor. I forget what state he was in. I think maybe it was Oklahoma or something. But he really helped me through a period where I just needed that outside perspective on life. Sometimes we're in the midst of the storm and it's really hard to see that the storm's not as big as we think it is, because we're in the middle of it and it feels really, really hard and bad. But often just that outside perspective to come alongside and just kind of redirect of like, hey, this storm, it feels really bad right now. And I don't know what you're going through, but man, it's not as bad as it feels, and you're going to get through it. And God's got you, and God's got an incredible plan for your life. And so I just want to encourage your listeners, if they are in that position I was in, just get out there and get that support system in place. Go to your support system if you are in that tough period. And for the things you just can't go to your support system, go find that counselor,
Good word.
that mental health professional that can come alongside you. I'm so grateful I did. I'm in a great
100%.
place now, but it's because of those moments. And so, listeners, I'm just going to pray for us. And, for those of you that maybe you just haven't, you're still trying to figure out what it looks like to have a relationship with God or any of those things. Those of us that have that relationship with God, when we say we're going to pray, it's just us going and joining with him and just sharing with him what's on our hearts and in our lives. He already knows. It's not like we have to go tell him. God already knows all of these things.
There's no surprise there.
No
Wait, what?
surprises at all.
Tommy's in a bad spot?
But this is just our way of outwardly turning it over to the Lord. And so I just invite you as a listener, if maybe you don't have that relationship with God yet because you're still trying to work through that, and you are in this dark moment, this kind of wilderness of life where you're trying to figure out what's your purpose and why are you going through all these hard times. I'm just gonna go to God and call it out, but he already knows.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that he already knows what's going on in your life. He loves you like crazy. He created you for an amazing purpose. And so we're just going to go call that out in prayer. So God, thank you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for loving these listeners like crazy. God, you love us so much. God, our identity isn't in our success or failure at work. Regardless of how successful we are, our identity doesn't come from that. Our identity comes from you creating us in your image and loving us like crazy. And God, for everybody out there, especially those people that are going through that really, really hard time that I've gone through multiple times in my life. God, we don't know their pain. We don't know what they're going through, but we know you love them, you care for them, and you have a plan and a purpose for them. And God, we just pray that they would recognize that, and they would take those next steps to go get that trusted friend in the mix, to let them know what's actually going on, the things they haven't been able to say yet, or to go share that with a true mental health professional. And certainly, God, to just bring that to you, and just to say, God, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. But God, if you're real, I want to know you. And please just make yourself known to me. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Man. Hey, man, thanks for the time today. Really grateful. Really grateful.
Oh, grateful for you guys. Are you kidding me? Thank you. Thanks for letting us tell our stories. And yeah, really, really grateful.
Super fun, dude. Always good to have you on.